Hello and welcome again to another Mixing Mondays. I'm Glenn Kessler here at the Compass Atelier, just north of Washington, D.C. in Rockville, Maryland. I'm pleased to take on a topic that I know a lot of people are looking forward to today, and that is the topic of flesh tones. Flesh tones can be very challenging for so many, partly because of our mindset, and I'll get into that in just a few moments. But also because we have a lot of challenges in terms of, lowering the saturation of some of our base pigments that might come out of the tube too intense. And I'll show you how to wrestle with those today. We're going to have a fun time getting into a lot of different people. I've got photographs of 6 folks that we'll be working from today. So I'll just kind of cycle through these, just some headshots that I picked up off of the internet. So we'll be looking at how to mix different ethnicities, different genders, different lighting conditions, and I think this is going to be a very valuable day for everyone. So I can't wait to get started with that. As always, we'll wait just about 2 minutes for those who would like to join us to come on in, say hi, ask any questions, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So thanks for joining us already. Looks like we've got about 25 people in already. That's great. And let me say hello. If you'd like to say hello, it's down at the bottom in the comments column. Always happy to see some familiar names as well as a lot of new names. I do see these videos are growing and more people are hearing about it. So if this is your first time watching a video, welcome. And thank you for joining us. We're pretty easygoing here, not intimidating at all. I'll be taking us through some mixing very shortly, and questions are always welcome. You can just direct those down to the comments bar at the bottom. Also, if you're joining for the first time or if you've been here a bunch, please go ahead and share the video. You can do that right now down at the bottom, usually as well. It depends on which device you're on. But just offering a share out to your network of friends and colleagues can really help to get them involved in the conversation so that they can ask questions and they can hear about this. Of course, we're live now. It's Monday at about 3:30, and as soon as we're done with our video, it will be immediately uploaded onto our Facebook page. That's the Painter's Compass Color Wheel Facebook page. So you can always catch this and any of our past videos there at any time. Let me say hello to, looks like Jacob has joined us. Hi, Jacob. And Suhai, great to see you. Jan, welcome back. Shanali, I think this is going to be a good one for everyone today, Shanali. I'm so excited for you. Paula, Lori, Regina, Barbara Kala, welcome. Happy birthday, Barbara. Just celebrated a birthday recently. Barbara Bell, also. Donna, glad you're here. Sandy and Marilyn, Michelle, hi Liz, John Weber. Margot, if I've got time to show this as a glaze, would love that too. I don't think I'm going to have time for glazing. We are going to have our hands full with so many different color mixes today. But Margot is a student of mine currently working on some old master techniques glazing. But Margot, for you, it would just be to simply exchange the medium for white. All right, let's see, Barbara Bailey, Donna Donlin, Valerie, good to hear from you, Roxana, James, hello, Linda, Daniels, and Debbie Cohen, Nancy Blacker. Okay, I am going to, and Jean Finn, you snuck in right there before I was about to transition over to our mixing. Let me reset just for everyone who's just joining us now. Of course, my name is Glenn Kessler. I'm the founder and director of the Compass Atelier and the inventor of the Painter's Compass Color Wheel. Painter's Compass Color Wheel is so much more than just a color wheel. It is actually a complete color theory course in a bag. At $7, I think it's about the best investment you can make in your artistic future. If you'd like to have one, if you don't have them already, or if you're a teacher and you've got students that you'd like to share this with, you can go to painterscompass.com. That's painters with an S, compass.com, and learn all about the wheel and We ship internationally. I know we've got a lot of folks joining us from Europe, Asia, and beyond. So welcome. And one Australia, I think. I'm a quarter Australian, so partial of that. Today on our Mixing Monday, we are going to be taking on a subject that was requested by the group, and it was certainly one that I was hoping to get to at some point anyway, flesh tones. Flesh tones can be quite challenging because they certainly come in a lot of different colors and flavors, and we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And I'll give you some helpful tools, in fact, in addition to the Painter's Compass color wheel that can help you diagnose your colors accurately. So without any further ado, why don't we go ahead and look down at the wheel and see what we're working with today. All right, so I've got all of my colors out here. I've got white as well, so I'll be working with those throughout the day. And just in case you're unfamiliar with the Painter's Compass color wheel, real quick, it's alizarin crimson or alizarin permanent, cadmium red medium, cadmium orange, cadmium yellow light or cadmium lemon, phthalo green, phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, ivory black, dioxazine purple, and way down here at the bottom I've got quinacridone magenta. Of course, plenty of titanium white off to the side. And those are reflected on our wheel with each of these dots and just a little shorthand so that you're familiar with which one is which. Once you get more familiar with your palette, you can remove those numbers or those letters if they're bothersome and just keep the dots. The dots what's important, and of course those are actually written in wet erase marker, which I would definitely link up with your color wheel. On the inside, they're actually on the laminated bag that's inside of here. Then we slide that back into the bag, and for the rest of the time we're using the wheel, we're actually going to be drawing on the bag, on the outside, connecting things. Let's get to our first set of colors. And I'm just going to be working with some photographs that I just took off the internet of just a range of people's skin tones. And I think the first thing that I want to introduce you to is a very inexpensive, simple tool. May save you a little bit of money at the art store. And this is what I'm going to call a color picker. I'll just take that language from elsewhere. All that this is a piece of gray duct tape. That's all this is. I tear off 4 to 5 inches, fold it back on itself, and then cut a hole punch in the middle. What are we going to use this for? Well, it's simple. We're going to lay it over top of our photograph wherever we want to identify a color. And what it will do is it will allow us to see that color free of preconceived ideas about what we think that color is supposed to be. It's the ultimate in terms of objectivity. It's not going to be so challenging on a larger area or a color that's very obvious, like, for example, like the lips, but it is going to help us, especially as we navigate some of the flesh tones as we move across the form. So you'll see the color over here is quite different from the color right here, which is different from the color over on this side right here. And sometimes you can be surprised at the colors you end up with. Now, I like that it's gray because that's a neutral. I wouldn't want to use white or black because that's going to make what I see through that little hole either too dark or too light, depending on if it's white or black. So I love the gray for that reason. The second thing is when we're ready to mix up our color, when we think we've got the color mixed up, we can actually lay a little dollop of it on the tape right next to the hole to compare. And if it's correct, wonderful, we're ready to make our painting. And if it's not correct, then we can just wipe it off. Because the duct tape is slick, you can wipe that color right off and try again. But with it in such close proximity, sitting literally on, right next to the color you're trying to match, you're going to be able to see not only if it's a match, but also how you might change it if it isn't a match. Why don't we go ahead and get into our first mixture? I'm not going to be able to mix the entire head, but I'll walk you through a few of these color mixes. So this is an easy one. It's Caucasian Skin being highly illuminated. Why don't we just go after the center and the forehead right here. And I'm going to identify the hue. Let me pull that a little closer. I'm going to identify the hue there, no surprise probably, as a red-orange. And I want to steer clear of just calling it orange or red if I do find that it's somewhere in between those two. Now you might be having difficulty seeing that because it's so so light, so white. You don't actually have to know what the color is before you start. If you have a suspicion that you think it's a certain color, go ahead and add that color and let the progress of your mix help to reveal that. So if we maybe falsely identified it as just an orange, we'll add a little orange there, and we're going to add a bunch of white, of course, to account for how pale that value is, how light in value what we're looking at there is. What we'll quickly see is that that color doesn't match. And again, we'll just lay a little piece right next to there and try to make sure it goes on thick enough that you can really see it. And you can see that that's far too yellow when compared to the color we're looking for. So that orange was not the right hue. It was too far to the yellow side. So what's going to pull orange, less yellow, over to the red side? Cadmium red, of course. We can go ahead and add that in. A little cadmium red up here. Let me readjust that camera there. So a little red into our mixture. And we've got that temperature back at the right hue, more of a red-orange. I do think we've gone a little too dark, of course, so we can check that again, and we can just compare that, right into here. So the temperature's starting to feel better, but it's far too dark, and we want to add a lot more white. So, grab some more white. And I'm just going to grab this tiny little bit of our mixed red-orange. Now I can always add more color in. I've got plenty of it over here, but I don't want to overdo it and just keep having to throw more and more white at that. Now every time I add a little to it, I'm going to check it back with that little opening in our color picker and see how it matches. I think we're getting pretty close now. And let me go ahead and test that one more time. And let's see how that matches. That's pretty good. Ooh, we're almost there. I think just a tiny little bit more of that red, and we're going to have it. And I can push that flush so you can really see it. So just a little more red, and we're right there. The larger quantities you make, the easier it's going to be, because you're going to be mixing more of the pigments into there. If you're making only small quantities, and I'm just doing this today for demonstration purposes, but if I was really making a large painting of this, I'd try to make an ample quantity so that I didn't run out. And it's easier when it comes time to make the painting that I've already mixed that color. I spent all the time mixing that color, and I'm ready to go. I think that does pretty good. All right, that looks pretty good to me. So again, our first was too orange. We added a little red. It was not light enough. We added the white. Needed to just tweak it ultimately to get it a little bit more red. I'll add that on a little thicker just so you can really see. Something like that. So you can really see. Now it might just go a tiny bit grayer, might be the only additional thing that I would do here. And of course, if we were going to lower the saturation of this mixed color, a red-green, I'm sorry, I gave it away, a red-orange, what color would I add to it? Well, we're over here, and so we're going to want to use the complement, which is going to be a blue-green. Again, watch some of our previous videos, specifically the red-green, if you don't understand what I'm saying there. So you mix together the red and the orange, and then you want to lower its saturation with blue-green. And I'll just throw a tiny bit in there just so you can see, and I mean a tiny bit. Not only is phthalo green an incredibly powerful color, in fact, I'm going to take a little bit of that off, an incredibly powerful tinting strength pigment, but we don't have a lot of paint here, and we don't need to change it that much. So just that little bit, those like 5 molecules of the green, are probably going to be enough to gray it up so it makes a perfect match. I might do 5 more molecules. That's about it. There we go. I think that did it. Make sure you mix until all of the ribbons of mixed color are gone. And there, oh, that is beautiful. I'm going to put that right on the photograph. I bet we can do that. Kind of see how that matches. I think this was right in her forehead. Pretty good. Wonderful. So if it's starting to disappear, you know you've gotten it pretty accurate. So that's looking good to me. All right. So and you would just do that as you work through the entire figure, collecting a variety of different colors everywhere that you felt like there was a threshold for a different experience. Now, when we are done with our color, we want to switch to a different color. Remember, this is duct tape, and we can actually wipe off, hopefully you can see this, you can wipe off the extra color. So there it goes, all gone. Ready to start again with a new color. Let's switch to this fella right here. So he's got a little more color in his face, so he's a little bit more red orange, more saturated, and he switches and we want to switch, you know. So I'm going to maybe put this over, you know, in an area like that. We get a little more intensity. Is that a good area, guys? Put right there. All right, so first we want to try to identify the color we're looking at here. Again, I think no surprise, we're going to see this as kind of in between red and orange. Now, the specific amount of red and orange will only really be borne out through the mix. So we don't want to say, okay, conceptually it must be red-orange, so I'm aiming for exactly red-orange. That's far too general to, you know, name the specific color that we're looking at here. But when we start mixing red and orange together, what we're going to see is we can just add a little more of one or the other to coax out a subtle difference. So let's go ahead and maybe just mix into that other color we had just worked with. I'm going to add a little more red and a little more orange into there so we can reuse that. And let's see, by upping the saturation and just adding, at this point it was kind of an arbitrary amount of red and orange, equal parts of both, but you know, not exactly totally calculated. If we can see if we can get a color like that. All right, so that's a good mixture of those two, and let's go ahead and test that. I'm just going to lay a little bit, a little thicker, lay a little bit on my duct tape and lay it right up against there. I'll get that in the shot for you. And look at what we've got. Again, far too intense. We're going to add a little bit of white to that, but we're also going to need our complement. We're going to need to lower the saturation of that color. It's too punchy, it's too intense. So we're going to do that by going across the color wheel to that blue-green. Again, I'll probably rely more on phthalo green. But if I find that the phthalo green is causing this mixture to go too orangey, that would make sense because phthalo green is opposite red on the wheel, whereas phthalo blue is opposite orange on the wheel. So by adding the green to this red-orange mixture, I'm diluting the red, but I'm not accounting for the extra orange. So if it spikes orange, I'll add some blue. I could start with blue the same and we'd see it kind of go the other direction. I might have to add some green, but let's start with a little bit of that green. All right, I'll leave a little bit of that original color off to the side so you can see how it can change by adding the complement. Again, watch some of our previous videos where we've gone over green and red mixture, where we did phthalo blue as a pigment, as a color, and we looked at that. But the addition of just the phthalo green takes this color from being a bit more intense and it just grays it up a bit. That, I think, did a pretty good number on it already. So you can see that shift. Now again, it's gone too orange, right? Exactly what I was thinking might happen. And I still want to lower that saturation a bit more. So now I'm going to grab phthalo blue, which is again the complement of orange, and that should take away some of that orangeness. That might have been too much blue. We can always go back. Oh, actually not too bad. Comes out of the gate pretty intensely, but then it quiets off. You get it mixed in solution. So that's nice. That's a really beautiful color. And this should have pushed it back a little redder. Let's see. Oh, that's really lovely. Hope that's coming through on the screen. Oh, I can see on the screen it looks a little different And how it actually matches really close to my eyes, but I can see through the camera lens that feels still a little orangey, a little putty color. It's actually not. So here, let me indulge you. I'm going to add a little more red to it just so that the camera matches for you. Add a little more red. And let's see if we can work through the camera lens here so you guys can have the same experience. And that should work just fine. As always, questions are welcome. Let me see. Suha, I see, has a question. Do you recommend using a large reference photo, both for color mixing as reference while painting in class? You know, I don't think you need any larger than about an 8 by 10. I mean, it certainly depends on the size of the canvas you're working. If you're working on a 6-foot tall canvas, then I would definitely get a little larger than that. But if you're working on, I don't know, anything under about 3 feet, then surely I think an 8 by 10 photograph is going to be large enough for you to see your details. What can happen actually if you get a little too large is you get obsessed with the details and you stop seeing the major shapes together. So we want to be careful of that. Wonderful. Well, this is our new one, the one on the left over here, and it looks like in the camera screen that's a closer match. At this point, it's just a little too dark. So what are we going to add to it, guys? What do we lighten a color with? No trick question here. Just white. A little bit of white. And the painter's compass color wheel. White and black sometimes are your final colors. I do like to think about the hue and the saturation first if I can, but if the color is incredibly light or incredibly dark, then I find that it's probably a better idea to start with the white or the black. And we certainly did that in our first mix today, where the forehead of that young lady was so much lighter. It wouldn't have made sense to start mixing reds and blues and stuff together. So we started with the white, and then we tinted it. So the process can change a little bit from one color to the next. And there is our attempt. I think that's pretty close to my eye. Maybe just a little more white. Let's go a little more white. And you keep tweaking it, and really I am seeing more orange in there in life, but that's okay. Let's get you guys happy there. That's about it, right? So that feels pretty darn good to me. I think that's a pretty accurate skin tone that we could go with. This one right here, a nice match for what we've got on that particular spot on this fella's head. Let's change things up a little bit from Caucasian figure to someone with a darker skin tone. So go with him next. And what we want to do also is we want to put it into our color language and not just make assumptions that because we've rendered other skin tones, we know what skin tone is going to show up. And if I can just say kind of on a broader level, it doesn't matter what the person's ethnicity or skin tone is or lighting condition is, you really want to see free of preconception. You want to see free of bias about what color a person is supposed to provide for you. That's a recipe for disaster because you end up making formulaic paintings. You end up using the same color every time you see anyone. And we don't want to preclude ourselves from finding the beautiful, unexpected colors that might be out there in the world. And, you know, if we pick just this spot on his forehead, I think we're going to be surprised that perhaps this is no longer in that red-orange vein, but who's got it? Go ahead and put in the chat what hue you think you're seeing right there. I'll give you a second. I know there's a little bit of a delay, so I'm going to go ahead and start mixing it. And you might be able to have a guess based on what you see me doing here as well. I'm going to take these away. Yeah. Good guess, Freddie. That's actually the correct answer, but I always like to put it into our hue, saturation, and value language. So I think we're starting to get it. Yes. And peachy, Freddie, is not any better. Freddie's a regular student of mine, so I'm going to laugh at you a little bit. Peachy and pink are not options for hue. Try to pick one of these 12 pie pieces, red, red-orange, orange, yellow-orange, because that can really help us. When we say peachy, when we say pink, I don't know where that is on the wheel. And one person's burgundy is another person's maroon. You've got to know what hue we're talking about. Then we're going to lower its saturation. And then ultimately value. Value is not on the wheel. We would have to stack a bunch of wheels up to get lighter and darker versions of them. Good. I think we've got enough answers in there. Red, purple, red, purple. So who won the prize today? It looks like Margot and Marilyn, Shanali, and Michelle. Excellent. Well done, guys. So red, purple is actually what we're seeing up in that forehead. So we're going to start not by grabbing cadmium red and then going over to the cadmium orange side. We're going to be somewhere in the quinacridone, alizarin, cadmium red family. And just looking at that one, I think it, to me, looks more like an alizarin crimson start. So I'm going to start there. But you can get more sensitive to, the colors that you're working with the more you work with them. And you might have a favorite color. You might even have a color that you're working with, in your painting that tells you what you're supposed to be developing, So there's a lot of reasons you might make a different choice on that. But why don't we go ahead and start with that alizarin. You can see that's far too intense to match. I don't even need to put that down anywhere. So we want to lower the saturation of alizarin crimson. What do we lower alizarin crimson with? Phthalo green and cadmium lemon will lower it straight down the barrel. So if I were to kind of, say, how do I lower alizarin crimson's saturation? Oh, I think I let my pen dry out. It's down here. There we go. So I'm not going to use that. I'm not just going to go straight down because I actually see these a little more purple. So I'm going to really favor that phthalo green, which is going to pull it. Why is that not focusing there? We're just going to pull that over in this direction, which should lower the saturation and push it a little more into the purple side. So alizarin crimson and phthalo green, a beautiful color combination. All right, a little bit is going to go a long way. These are both heavy hitters, so we got to be careful that we don't overshoot. I can tell we are going to need a little bit of that cadmium red as it's going just a bit too purple. Now we're fully in purple, and so we want to pull back to more of that warm side. I'm going to grab a little more of that, why don't we use cadmium red to pull it back. Could have also used the cadmium lemon. That would have actually made sense. But then we're relying a lot on the alizarin crimson to do the heavy lifting of that color. Good. In fact, that might have been too much alizarin right off the bat. So it ends up, I can see, still being a little too purple. So we're just going to shift it over there. And now I will use that yellow. And what we're doing is we're just pulling this color with the red. We're pulling it over. I think we were down here. We're pulling the red, pulls it up through here, but I actually want to make it a little lower saturation with the yellow. So that'll pull it down through here. And so we'll just grab a little bit of that yellow into there. And I think that's going to get us much closer. Very nice. All right. Getting closer here. We're going to add a bit more white. And, here's an interesting comment. I mean, the first two figures were Caucasian, but what we can sometimes call that skin tone white. And this fella, African-American fella, we might call that skin black. The Caucasian skin is no more white paint than his skin is black paint. We're rendering a highlight on his skin, and it's important to meet that value where it is. We don't want to say, oh, just because this is a black man, I should make the colors so much darker. He's going to have a full range of highlights and shadows and midtones that we want to meet each of those colors exactly where they are. We don't want to force feed a notion of extra blackness onto him or extra whiteness onto a Caucasian figure. And, that's just going to really keep us honest, as we're working. So we're getting much closer. And, Freddie, I think we are getting back to your pink idea here for that forehead. We're almost there. All right. We're just going to keep lowering the saturation and lightening it up. And of course, we have our yellow and our green mixture that is lowering the saturation. And then white will lighten it. Great. I think we're almost there. A little more yellow. And again, sometimes even if you don't know the color off the bat, it's not a problem. You just got to stick with it until you can figure it out, until you find it out. But as you make comparisons, you keep testing it on your photograph, or you can do this from life as well. You just kind of hold it up. It's easier for me to demonstrate it on a photograph for you guys at home, but you just kind of hold those colors up in nature under the same lighting condition and you can see it. So there we are. That's much closer, right? Really good. Now, of course, it's there's a bunch of dots. You've got light and dark spots. He's got pores. It's high-res camera. So we can kind of amalgamize those. If we want to go a little lighter, we can go a little lighter. If we want to lower the saturation, we can go a little lower in the saturation. But this is really nice that we've gotten, to this kind of pink stage. And, we can continue to make those adjustments, as we need. Just show you a little more green and white. Would really gray it up. It's actually starting to become very similar to the tone of the palette paper here, which is really charming, just in its own. Right, there we go. And we need a little more yellow. Excellent, a little more red. Great. And I think that's the color. Go ahead and wipe off the other ones, let you see that one. Awesome, true. Just remember when you're going to wipe it, there's a hole in the middle, so don't wipe it over top of your photograph. Take it off to the side and wipe it, or else you're going to end up mushing that all over your photograph. Sometimes what I have my students do is put it inside of a sheet protector, and that will keep the color from obviously getting on the printed photograph. You don't want to keep printing your photograph over and over again. Downside to that is you're looking through a sheet protector, which can be extra glary or get a little gross after a while. So that's a really nice color. Hopefully you guys can see that matches pretty darn nice. And so again, for that skin tone, we ended up starting with alizarin crimson. We ended up using cadmium red and alizarin crimson to control the hue, and we had phthalo green and cadmium yellow to lower the saturation. So we ended up pulling that down. I think it's probably around here when all was said and done, that color existed right around the red, purple, medium to subdued saturation. That's ended up being what we had there. And then a nice value, what about a value 4 or 5? So that's what I would call that color, and that works better than calling it pink or maroon or lilac or magenta or anything like that. If we can use hue, saturation, and value to name our colors, then we are not only giving ourselves a unified language. When you talk with other people who've used the Painter's Compass color wheel, they're going to understand what you're talking about. And it gives you the opportunity to be able to then know that you're going to pull on just these little pulleys here, just alizarin, cad red, phthalo green, and yellow, to produce the color you're looking for. So if you're over here, or over here, or over here, and you want to be over here, you know what to pull it with. Okay, that would be pulled by a little green and crimson mixture. Or if you were up here and you wanted to pull it up, you'd use mostly alizarin, maybe a little bit of phthalo green, right over there. The more you use the Painter's Compass color wheel, the more these drawings, the more the graphical illustration of what we're doing here aligns with what you're mixing on your palette. And that's the really important part. I do have a couple of people who buy the Painter's Compass color wheel and say, okay, I got it, I'm looking at it. You really have to draw with it. You really have to engage with it and draw on it, at least in the first couple of months, to figure out how you can move in all these interesting directions through the wheel, controlling the hue, controlling the saturation with just these little, these little adjustments of, of the base colors. And then of course, when when your wheel gets a little messy, you take a paper towel, dip it in just some water, and you can wipe that right off, and you're ready to start on your new color mix, and all of your pigments are still there, ready to go. All right, so I think we can, we'll probably pause there for today. I do try to keep our videos at about 30 minutes. I don't want to go too far over that. I know we could probably do this forever and ever, but so it is that, that I think we'll stop here. If you'd like more information on the Painter's Compass color wheel, of course, head over to our website, painterscompass.com or thepainterscompass.com, either one will get you there. And I'll continue to be posting videos not only here on our Mixing Mondays, but I'll be continuing to develop more instructional opportunities for the wheel. We're going to be starting a TikTok account soon as well, which is just little 60-second videos of color mixes. And, and I'm looking forward to just continuing to bring out excellent content for you guys to be able to master how to use the Painter's Compass color wheel in the mixing of any subject that you're trying to work on. I really have found it to be the greatest resource of color theory and color mixing in all my years of teaching and painting. And so I, just continue to believe in this product. And I think so many of you do as well. So thank you for that. And thanks for tuning in again to another Mixing Monday. If you wouldn't mind sharing the video and sharing what we're doing here with your friends so that, that more and more people can hear about this and make color the strongest part of their artistic game. From the Compass Atelier, this is Glenn Kessler signing off for another Mixing Monday. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next week right here at the studio. Bye.